So these are light pillars, some of the best I've seen.
Here's the explanation. It usually happens because
What's really going on with our world right now? And what if these signs aren't just random? Everywhere, nature is exploding, cracking open, and sending out warning signals. A strange green spring shoots up right in the middle of New York. The Arizona desert splits into a giant deep crack. Weird pillars of light shoot straight up into the Minnesota sky. And in Colombia, fire bursts right out of the ground. Black clouds hang in the air. Thick, chemical-smelling fog spreads everywhere. Mysterious beams tear across the sky. Strange castles appear in the clouds, and an old tree in Canada sprays water like it's crying. All of this is happening right in front of us. It's no longer some far-off warning in old books. More and more people are starting to wonder, is nature trying to tell us something, or is this an urgent reminder from the Creator? Do you feel like the world is changing faster than ever before? If you believe God is still watching over everything and guiding it all, please leave a prayer in the comments to show your faith. Amen. And now, take a really good look at the first sign, because what you're about to see might change the way you look at this world forever. 1. A bright blue spring gushing up from the ground in New York. On a regular afternoon in New York, with skyscrapers catching the sunlight and people rushing around as usual, something happened that stopped the whole neighborhood in its tracks. Right near the Hudson River shore, a bright blue stream of water suddenly shot up from the ground, like the earth just took a strange, deep breath. The water wasn't clear like a normal spring. It glowed with this weird, vivid blue, bubbling nonstop and sending thin, misty sprays into the air. In just a few seconds, folks nearby froze in place, and you can imagine how it felt to see the ground under a big city suddenly wake up in such an unexpected way. The spout was maybe a few feet high, shooting up steadily, then easing off, then bursting again like a slow, heavy breath from deep below. Sunlight hit it and made the blue sparkle like glass, with big bubbles rising and popping with little crackling sounds. A faint mineral smell drifted over, and the air around it felt a couple degrees colder, enough to give people watching a hard-to-name, uneasy feeling. Phones came out right away. Everyone started recording, because no one had ever seen a spring with that kind of strange color right in the middle of a huge city. The area near the Hudson River is known for underground water sources and natural springs hidden deep down. What made this one so unusual was how forcefully it erupted and that almost glowing bright blue color. It didn't look like algae or any common mineral shade geologists usually see. In the light, the water seemed dyed by some invisible energy, and every time a bubble burst, blue ripples spread out across the wet ground nearby. Scenes like that made a lot of folks think of an old Bible verse. In Joel 2:30, it says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." Those words were written thousands of years ago, but when strange things start happening right under our feet, many people begin to feel like nature has its own way of making us stop and think. Pretty soon, people started guessing what caused it. Some said it was just a mineral reaction underground, or methane gas bubbles escaping from river sediments. But so far, no one can fully explain why the water was that bright, almost shining blue, or how it had such strong pressure to burst up like that in a busy urban spot. The whole thing didn't last long, but it left a lasting impression on anyone who saw it, like the earth had just revealed a very ancient secret. There's another reminder in Matthew 24:29. Right after those days of trouble, the sun will go dark, the moon won't give light, stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. People often bring up these words when talking about turbulent times in the world. And as odd events start showing up in the sky and on the ground, many feel they're like opening signs, as if nature is telling a bigger story that we've only just begun to hear. that blue spring finally calmed down, leaving a shiny wet trail on the ground and hundreds of videos spreading everywhere. But what really has people wondering isn't just the strange color, it's the feeling that the ground can change in ways we can't predict. And if a city like New York can see something so mysterious, the next question popping into many minds is, because that blue spring in New York might just be the first sign, and what happened next in a wide desert area of Arizona left people who saw it even more shaken. 2. A mysterious crack splitting the Arizona desert in two. A huge crack suddenly tore open the ground right in the middle of the Arizona desert, and in just a few hours, it left people who saw it feeling like the earth itself was opening its mouth. From up above, drones flew over and captured images that gave a lot of folks chills. A long, twisting crack cutting through the dry red dirt, stretching for miles like a fresh scar on the planet's surface. This wasn't some small split from rain or a regular sinkhole. It was wide, deep, and long, as if some invisible force had just pulled the land apart. This crack showed up in southern Pinal County, Arizona, an area well known for its dry land and earth fissures that form over the years as groundwater levels drop. But what made this one stand out was its size and shape. The crack runs about 2 miles long, wide enough that you can see it clearly from the air, like a line drawn across the desert. The edges stand straight up, with dirt and rocks collapsing in layers, and looking down from above, the bottom disappears into darkness so deep you can hardly see where it ends. What really gave people the creeps was what showed up inside the crack. Mixed in with the red dirt and dry rock were old wooden beams scattered along its length. Some were still standing straight like ancient support posts, while others had broken and tilted down toward the bottom. When drones flew lower for close-up shots, you could clearly see these timbers looked like they used to be part of some underground support structure. That moment made a lot of people feel like the ground had just revealed a secret buried for a very long time. And you can imagine standing on the edge of this giant crack, looking down at something no one had ever seen before. Some geologists quickly explained that this could be tied to subsidence from dropping groundwater levels. Over many years, as underground water gets pumped out, the soil above loses its natural support and starts to pull apart, creating long cracks on the surface. This has happened in many parts of Arizona, where earth fissures can stretch hundreds of feet. Still, what has people wondering is why this crack exposed such deep wooden structures, and why it grew to nearly 2 miles, much bigger than most usual fissures on record. In the Bible, big changes in the earth are often mentioned as signs of troubled times. Matthew 24:7 says, "There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places." Those words were given as a warning about periods when the world starts shaking, both literally and figuratively. Looking at a huge desert split in two by a giant crack, many folks can't help but think of that image. Another Bible verse talks about signs appearing in the sky and on the earth. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke." These words don't directly explain specific earth events, but they suggest that nature can sometimes reveal bigger changes we don't fully understand yet. Scientists keep studying this, measuring the ground, and looking at the area's mining history for better answers. One idea is that the exposed wooden beams might come from old mining operations buried decades ago, and when the ground dropped, they got uncovered by chance. But until there's a clear answer, this nearly 2-mile crack in the Arizona desert remains something that makes people stop and think about the real power of the ground beneath our feet. Because if a piece of land that seemed rock solid for centuries can suddenly split like that, maybe this is just one of many signs that the world is entering a time of unpredictable changes. And what's worth noting is that after these underground shifts, the next strange thing didn't show up in the desert, but in the cold night sky over Minnesota, where odd pillars of light suddenly shot straight up. 3. Light pillars in the sky over Winstead, Minnesota. The sky suddenly exploded with light. Near Winstead, Minnesota, huge pillars of light shot straight up into the air, like someone had just put up giant columns of brightness in the middle of a freezing winter night. It happened so fast that a lot of folks pulled their cars right over on the road just to look up. If you'd been standing there in that moment, would you have thought you were seeing a natural wonder or maybe something much bigger? The pictures people took show rows of blue and white light pillars rising from the horizon, hundreds of feet tall, perfectly straight, like enormous temple columns standing in the night sky. The light bounced off countless tiny ice crystals floating in the bitter, cold Minnesota air, creating a sight that was stunningly beautiful and at the same time gave people chills. A lot of folks said the sky looked like it was being pierced by spears of light. This reminded people of an old verse in the Bible. In Joel 2:30, it says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke." When they saw those straight-up light pillars in the sky, plenty of people right away thought of that pillar mentioned in the verse. What made it even stranger was how the pillars appeared all at once. Not just one or two, but dozens of them lined up across the sky, shimmering like glowing ribbons of silk. From a distance, the whole sky looked like a giant gate opening in the winter night. People who saw it said the light seemed to come from inside, not just bouncing off the ground. On social media, folks started arguing right away. Some said it's just a normal optical thing called light pillars, when light from streetlights or the sun reflects off flat ice crystals in cold air. Others felt the way these pillars showed up so strong and altogether was so rare that it didn't feel normal at all. Right in the middle of those arguments, another Bible verse came up. Luke 21:11 says, "There will also be fearful events and great signs from heaven." For centuries, people have connected that line to unusual things in the sky, signs that make folks stop and wonder what's going on with the world. Of course, science has a clear explanation. Tiny hexagon-shaped ice crystals can reflect light straight up and down, making these gorgeous light pillars. The super cold winter air in Minnesota makes it happen more intensely than usual. But even when you understand how it works, a lot of people still feel something very unusual when they see the sky standing up with pillars like that. Maybe the most striking thing isn't the light itself, but the feeling it gives you. A feeling that's overwhelming and makes you realize the sky is so much bigger and more mysterious than we usually think. With dozens of quiet light pillars standing in the darkness, the whole space feels like it's gently reminding us that there are still things in this world we can't fully explain. The pillars eventually faded as the air warmed up and the ice crystals fell. But the question stays, was it just a rare optical event or a quiet reminder from the sky that strange signs are still showing up around us? And if those light pillars made the sky look so different, then the next sign coming from the ground might leave even more people amazed. 4. Flames erupting from the ground in Colombia. The ground suddenly caught fire. Not a forest fire, not a volcano, but the earth itself shooting flames straight up into the air. In a small village in Colombia, just one swing of a shovel into the soil, and a fierce blaze exploded like something had been smoldering deep below for a very long time. People panicked and ran in every direction, because what used to be peaceful farmland turned into a living furnace, breathing out scorching hot gases. This happened in a rural area, where the soil is rich in organic matter and layers of trapped natural gas. What shocked everyone was how the fire appeared. The surface looked completely normal, dry and calm, no warning signs at all. But the moment the dirt was dug up, gas escaped, and even a tiny spark was enough to send flames shooting up many feet high, dancing wildly in the air. Flickering red and blue flames popped up at different spots around the village, as if the ground was exhaling bursts of intense heat. In some places, the fire shot out like little mud volcanoes, with thick black smoke rising in heavy columns. If you were standing right there, watching flames burst from the exact spot you just dug into, would you think it's just a natural accident or something much more frightening going on beneath the earth? That scene reminded many people of an old verse in the Bible. In Joel 2:30 it says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and pillars of smoke." When black smoke columns and flames rose right from the ground, a lot of folks believed this was exactly the picture that Bible verse described thousands of years ago. Looking closer at the sight, people noticed several strange details. The fire didn't just happen in one spot, it kept appearing in different areas across the village. In some places, the blaze was so strong that the surrounding soil cracked and became searing hot. Even scarier, there was no wood, branches, or fuel on the surface, yet the flames kept burning thanks to gas seeping up from below. Many experts say this could be methane gas that built up in the organic layers underground. When the soil gets disturbed, the gas comes out, and a small spark sets it off. Scientifically, that makes perfect sense. But what worried the villagers was how the fires started all at once in so many places, almost like the whole area was turning into one huge underground fire system. Another Bible warning came to mind when people saw this. Revelation 8-7 says, "Hail and fire mixed with blood fell to the earth." In many interpretations, fire coming up on the land is seen as a sign of big upheavals that humanity will have to face. Looking at that village, you could clearly feel the fear among the people living there. The fields that once fed them had become dangerous ground, where one shovel in the dirt could unleash a raging fire. No one knows how many more gas pockets are still hidden deep down, waiting to be released at any moment. Even though science can give a reasonable explanation, the sight of land bursting into flames still sends chills down people's spines. When the very ground, something that's supposed to be solid and stable, starts spewing fire and smoke, that uneasy feeling spreads wider than ever. And if these flames are really a warning, they might be reminding us that the world is heading into a time of great shaking. Because once the earth starts breathing fire, the next signs could shock people even more. But fire from underground isn't the scariest thing yet. The next sign appeared in the trees, and what happened to them might make anyone who sees it shudder. 5. Old tree on fire in Indonesia. A tree in the forest suddenly starts showing flames, but it doesn't burn up at all. Deep in the thick jungle of Indonesia, an old tree suddenly has small, flickering flames running along its bark. While the leaves stay green, the sap keeps flowing, and the trunk looks just fine. The group of explorers stood quiet for a few seconds, staring at the strange sight. If you saw a tree on fire, but still alive, what would you think was going on? The flames, greenish-yellow, dance along the trunk like living strips of light. They don't roar up like a wildfire, and they don't spread anywhere else. Instead, the fire just glides along the bark, almost like it's breathing with the tree. The strangest part is that the leaves up top aren't even singed, and the tree stands strong as if the flames never touched it. The forest where this happened is known for having lots of trees full of natural oils and volatile compounds. Under certain conditions, those can create small burning reactions when they meet oxygen in the air. But the way these flames appear, gentle, quiet, and hardly harming the tree, makes many who see it feel like they're witnessing something beyond a simple explanation. The scene reminds people of a familiar picture in the Bible, where fire shows up but doesn't destroy. In Joel 2:30 it says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and pillars of smoke." When folks see those dancing streaks of flame on the tree deep in the woods, many can't help thinking about the wonders on the earth that verse talks about. Looking closer, the people recording it noticed the flames appear along small cracks in the bark where sap and natural oils seep out. When the temperature and air are just right, those substances can make small but steady little flames. What's special is they burn so lightly, more like a tiny lamp than a destructive blaze. This also brings to mind the reminder in Matthew 24:7. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places. In many interpretations, changes in nature, from the ground, the sky, to the trees, are seen as signs that make people pause and think about bigger things happening in the world. Scientists say gases and natural oils inside the tree are probably the main cause. Still, the question that keeps people curious is why the fire can run along the trunk without wrecking its structure. That strange balance between fire and life makes the whole thing feel more like a message than just a freak accident of nature. Looking at the tree still green and alive among those small flames, many feel something really special. The fire is there, but life goes on. It doesn't bring panic. Instead, it feels like a quiet reminder that even in the hardest to understand things in nature, there's still some kind of order working behind it all. Maybe that's exactly why this touches so many people's faith. When fire and life exist together on one tree in the deep forest, it feels like a hint that the world is still under a bigger control, where strange signs are sometimes just gentle nudges to look up higher. You've just seen the first 5 signs, but the journey isn't over yet. The next ones will be even stranger, and they might make a lot of folks see the world in a whole new way. 6. Mysterious cloud hovering over the beach. A huge cloud suddenly hung low, right above the ground on the beach. It didn't drift quickly with the wind or fade away like normal clouds do. Instead, it quietly stretched along the horizon like a dark wall floating between the sky and the sea. The sight made a lot of people walking on the sand stop and look up. A natural question came to mind. How could a cloud just stay so still like that? From a distance, the cloud looked thick and heavy, dark gray mixed with black, like a giant rolling smoke. It stretched for miles along the coastline, moving so slowly that it felt like it wasn't drifting but gently rolling through the air. Inside the cloud, there seemed to be faint movements, small swirling circles constantly changing, giving it a mysterious feeling, as if the cloud was hiding something inside. Some people who saw it said that when they stood under the cloud, the sky suddenly got dark even though the sun was still far off. The whole horizon was almost completely covered by that floating cloud. If you were standing on the beach at that moment and saw a giant cloud hanging so low to the ground, you'd probably think it was just a normal weather thing, or maybe some kind of sign worth thinking about. This sight reminded a lot of folks of a verse in the Bible. In Luke 21:11, it says, "There will also be fearful events and great signs from heaven." For centuries, strange things in the sky have always made people pause and wonder if nature was trying to send some kind of message. The cloud kept moving slowly, rolling like a giant wave suspended in the air. The strange part was that it held its shape for quite a while, not getting torn apart by the wind like regular clouds. In just a few minutes, the whole beach was nearly covered in its soft shadow, creating a scene that was both grand and mysterious. Then, almost suddenly, the cloud started to break up. The thick swirls pulled apart. The cloud thinned out quickly until the sky turned clear blue again, as if nothing had happened. All that was left were the people who had just watched it, standing on the sand, looking up at the sky and trying to make sense of what they'd seen. Another Bible verse often comes up when people talk about changes in the sky. Matthew 24:29 says, "The powers of the heavens will be shaken." In many understandings, unusual sky events are sometimes seen as little reminders to pay more attention to what's going on in the natural world. Weather experts say this could have been a type of roll cloud or scud cloud, formed when cool, moist air from the sea meets warmer air above. The temperature difference creates long rolling bands of cloud, sometimes hanging low near the ground. Still, the perfect shape and the way this cloud appeared so suddenly made many people feel it was more special than the usual ones. Whether you explain it with science or look at it through faith, that scene still gives a very clear feeling. The sky holds more mysteries than we realize. When clouds can form such strange shapes and show up out of nowhere like that, it gives us one more reason to think about how vast and orderly the world really is. And if those signs in the sky already made a lot of people stop and think, the next phenomenon is going to catch even more attention, because this time, the sign didn't just appear in the sky or in the forest, but right in the middle of where people live. 7. Chemical fog, spreading across multiple states. A thick, unusual fog rolled through many states in America, covering streets and fields like a quiet wave. It didn't clear up fast when the sun came up. Instead, it just hung there heavy in the air, making the familiar atmosphere feel like it was carrying something strange. This fog wasn't like the normal misty mornings we see. It was thicker, murkier. People walking through it said they noticed a slight, sharp smell, kind of like right after big fireworks. Not everyone caught it right away, but after just a few minutes, some folks started feeling dry throats, stinging eyes, and a little trouble breathing. On quiet roads, car headlights cut through the fog, creating weird sparkling beams. Tiny particles in the air caught the light, making everything look covered in millions of little dust specks. If you stepped outside at that moment, you could feel the light fog settling on your coat and skin, like the air was carrying more than just water vapor. The scene reminded a lot of people of a familiar Bible verse. In Joel 2:30 it says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and pillars of smoke." That pillars of smoke image has long been connected to thick, unusual smoke or fog that appears out of nowhere, making people stop and think about what's happening around them. What makes this event stand out is how wide it spread. Not just one town or small area. Different states all reported thick fog lasting for hours. In some places, the haze stayed even after sunlight started coming through, creating a sight that's rare for folks who've lived there many years. Environmental experts say it could be a mix of natural fog and tiny pollution particles in the air. When temperatures drop quickly and humidity rises, those small particles can get trapped close to the ground, making thicker fog than usual. Still, that light chemical smell many people mentioned leaves folks wondering what's really floating around up there. Another Bible passage often comes up when talking about thick smoke spreading wide. Revelation 9:2-3 says, "Smoke rose from the abyss, like the smoke from a huge furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. Out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth." That picture of thick smoke covering the sky has long been seen as a strong warning to the world. Whether you look at this through science or faith, one thing is clear. The air around us isn't always as steady as we think. Small changes in nature sometimes remind us that the world runs by bigger rules than we usually understand. But instead of just seeing something odd, many believe signs like this are a call for people to pause, think, and adjust how we live in this world. When nature shifts, it might be time for us to listen more closely to the messages being sent. The fog will clear eventually when the wind changes and the air warms up, but signs in the sky and in the air keep showing up in different places. And the next sign will come from even higher up, a sky event that makes many people afraid to look away from the heavens. 8. A laser beam shining bright from the sky down to the mountain. A white-green beam of light suddenly shot straight down from the sky onto the dark mountain range far away. It wasn't a quick flash of lightning, not a sweeping searchlight, but a sharp, perfectly straight column of light, like a sword of brightness, cutting through the night sky. People watching from a distance could only stand quietly as the light hit the mountainside, and for that moment, you almost felt like the sky was opening right in front of your eyes. The beam appeared over a remote mountain area where there are hardly any big cities or strong lighting systems. What made the sight so hard to figure out was how the beam kept its perfect shape. It didn't spread out like a spotlight, and it didn't flicker like lightning. Instead, the column stood straight and clean, like a glowing metal rod connecting the sky and the ground. The light was so bright you could see it from miles away, stretching a long way through the air. When it touched the mountainside, the rocky cliffs reflected it and made the whole area sparkle like it was covered in crystals. Folks watching from far off said the scene looked like a door of light opening up in the night sky. If you were standing at a safe distance and saw a perfectly straight beam pierce through the clouds and slam down into the mountain like that, your first feeling probably wouldn't be fear, it would be pure amazement. Because the light wasn't just dazzling, it also felt orderly and precise, like an invisible hand was guiding it right to the spot. Some people who saw this remembered a familiar Bible verse. In Luke 21:25, it says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." In many ways of thinking, strange lights in the sky often make people think about special moments in history. The beam stayed for a few minutes, keeping its strong intensity the whole time. Thin clouds around it got pierced through, sending out rays of light spreading from the main column. The whole sky looked like a living painting of light, and the people watching almost forgot about time. Then, just as suddenly as it came, the beam started to fade and disappeared completely. The sky went back to quiet, with only the dark mountains and stars above. But the people who saw it stood still for a long time, because that sight left a feeling you don't easily forget. Another Bible verse often comes up when people talk about changes in the heavens. Matthew 24:29 says, "The powers of the heavens will be shaken." For many, these strange light events feel like little hints, making us pay more attention to the sky and to bigger things going on above this world. Some think it might have been a laser from a research device, light from a satellite, or even a powerful light system far away. But the people who saw it up close said they couldn't see any source of light on the ground. The beam seemed to come from way up high, straight down, like a path of light linking sky and earth. Whatever the final explanation turns out to be, the scene still gives you something deep to think about. Light has always stood for illumination and truth. When a powerful column of light appears in the night sky, many feel it's like a reminder that there's a greater source of light still shining on this world. And if the light from the sky made so many people stop and reflect, the next sign will be even stranger. Because this time, the phenomenon won't just touch the sky or the ground, it will take us into a scene that feels like stepping out of a dark fairy tale. 9. Castle in the clouds in Peru. A huge castle suddenly appeared, but not on the ground. It was floating right up in the sky. Folks looking up at the mountains in Peru were stunned when the clouds pulled together into the perfect shape of an old fortress, with sharp towers and clear walls. That strange sight made a lot of people wonder, if you were standing there looking up, would you believe your own eyes? It happened high up in the Peruvian mountains, where the sky is usually so clear and the light keeps shifting as it moves through the clouds. But this time was different. A big gray-white cloud started swirling, and its edges slowly sharpened into straight lines, just like the solid walls of a fairy tale castle. What was really amazing was how clear the shape was. You could make out tall towers, thick walls, and even spaces that looked like windows. From a distance, the whole thing looked like a giant palace hanging thousands of feet above the ground, as if the sky had just built something right in midair. Sunlight poured through the clouds and made the edges of the castle glow bright. The mix of light and shadow made it look so solid that some people said it felt like if you took a few more steps, you could walk right into that world. It was beautiful enough to take your breath away, but it also gave you chills because it looked so real. While lots of people tried to snap pictures, the cloud castle stayed there for a few minutes, almost still in the sky. That scene reminded more than a few folks of a Bible verse. In Luke 21:11, it says, "There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven." Then, slowly, the sharp lines started to fade. The towers softened, the walls melted away, and in just a moment, that strange castle dissolved back into regular clouds. But the mysterious feeling stayed with those who saw it for a long, long time. Some scientists say this kind of thing can happen because of the way light bends and the special layers in the clouds. Still, what puzzles a lot of people is why it formed such a perfect palace shape. In nature, complex shapes like that with such clear balance don't show up very often. Another Bible verse that comes up a lot when folks see weird changes in the sky is Matthew 24:29. The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. For many believers, these strange sky sights feel like little reminders that the heavens are telling a bigger story. Throughout history, clouds have often stood for God's presence. And when the sky draws a palace up there all by itself, a lot of people feel it's more than just random chance. Maybe sometimes the sky is sending images that make us stop and think. If a castle can appear in the clouds for just a few minutes and then vanish, maybe this world still has plenty of things our eyes can't fully explain. And who knows, maybe it's a small hint of a greater kingdom waiting up above. But what really gets people thinking is that last sign. Because the 10th phenomenon didn't just make folks look up at the sky, it made a lot of hearts go quiet when they realized what it truly meant. 10. Ancient tree crying water in Canada. An old tree suddenly starts spouting water like a living fountain right in the middle of the forest. It wasn't after a rain, and there's no stream anywhere nearby, but clear water just keeps pouring out from that aged trunk. The folks standing around could only look at each other in amazement. If you were walking through a quiet woods and suddenly saw a tree crying water like that, what would you think was going on? It happened deep in a thick forest in Canada, where giant old trees have stood strong for hundreds of years. One huge trunk, its bark thick and rough from all those years, suddenly had a small crack appear. From that crack, water began flowing out steadily, non-stop, as if there was a hidden spring inside the tree. The water came out pretty strong, forming a little stream that ran down onto the dry leaves at the base. What puzzled everyone was how dry everything around it was. No lake, no stream, and no sign of recent rain. Yet the water kept coming from the tree, like the quiet breathing of the forest itself. That sight made a lot of people think of an old verse from the Bible. In Joel 2:30, it says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." In many quiet thoughts, strange signs in nature sometimes make folks wonder if the world is going through some special time. Even stranger, the tree itself is still perfectly healthy and alive. Its green leaves sway in the breeze, branches spread wide just like every other tree in the woods. But right in the middle of that trunk, the clear, cool water keeps flowing steadily. Some visitors put their hand on the bark and said it felt like touching a living body that was gently moving. People who saw it described the feeling as hard to put into words. Part of them were amazed at how powerful and alive nature can be, but another part felt something deeper was happening. In the stillness of the forest, the soft, dripping sound from the tree almost seemed like the heartbeat of the whole woods. Another Bible verse came to many minds when talking about unusual signs in nature. Luke 21:11 says, "There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven." In many people's thinking, those signs might not just show up in the sky, they could appear right here in the nature around us. Scientists have offered a few ideas. They say it might be connected to bacteria called wetwood or water pressure building up inside the trunk. But the question that still lingers for many is, why is the pressure so strong and steady when there's no obvious water source anywhere nearby? Whatever the final explanation turns out to be, seeing an ancient tree pouring water deep in the woods makes a lot of people stop and stay there a good while. It feels like a gentle reminder that nature isn't just lifeless scenery. Every forest, every tree seems to carry deeper stories that we humans haven't fully understood yet. Maybe sometimes nature is speaking to us in very quiet ways. A stream of water coming from an old tree might just be a natural thing, but it could also be a nudge that the world is changing and we need to listen a little closer. And when looking back at all the signs that have appeared, from the sky down to the ground, many folks start wondering, are these just random happenings? Or are they quiet warnings slowly showing up right in front of us? From strange lights in the sky, mysterious shapes in the clouds, to unexplained things happening on the ground, it all seems to be whispering the same message. The world around us isn't quiet at all. Nature, the sky, and time itself feel like they're gently knocking on the door of our hearts, asking us to pause, look up, and think a little deeper about what life really means. The Bible has talked about reminders like this for a long time. Matthew 24-42 says, "So keep watch, because you don't know what day your Lord will come." That reminder isn't meant to scare us. It's there to help us live with clear minds, turn back to what's right, and get ready for eternity. When we look back at these strange signs we've just explored together, a lot of folks start wondering, are these just random natural events, or are they gentle warnings slowly showing up? Everyone might see it differently, but one thing is clear. This world keeps reminding us that time doesn't stand still, and every day that passes carries a deeper meaning. Another verse in the Bible touches on this too. Luke 21:28 says, "When these things begin to happen, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." For many believers, those words are like a light on the path, reminding us to live with hope, faith, and a humble heart. Maybe the most important thing isn't trying to explain every single sign perfectly. It's asking ourselves, how am I living today? Are we living with gratitude, with love, and with a heart ready to turn back to God? Because sometimes the biggest signs aren't up in the sky, they're in the choices each one of us makes. If these stories make you think or touch your heart, maybe take a moment to write down a simple prayer or your own thought in the comments. Those honest, heartfelt prayers can be a real encouragement to others who are watching along with us. If this content means something to you or helps you reflect more on faith, please give it a like, share the video with friends or family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next messages. Every share can help one more person hear a valuable reminder. Before we close, thank you so much for taking the time to listen and think about this with us. May God bless you and your family with peace, protection, and guidance in every step of life. Amen. What would happen if the final signs have already started right in front of us? All across America, unbelievable things are breaking out. Green and yellow flames shooting up from the ground right in the middle of a college campus. Mysterious electric orbs floating over an airport parking lot. Terrifying sounds booming across Florida in the dead of night. Glowing objects dancing in the sky out over the ocean. At the same time, snow falling in bright sunshine, fire bursting up through ice, strange glowing domes hanging in the darkness, and the ground suddenly melting like lava. 10 phenomena, 10 moments that left eyewitnesses stunned. 10 signs that make a lot of people believe the world is entering a time like never before. Some call it natural accidents. Some say it's just science. But others believe what's happening was foretold thousands of years ago in the Bible. Do you think this is all just coincidence or a real warning? If these signs keep showing up more and more, what comes next? Before we dive into the answers for each event, Feel free to leave a prayer in the comments as a way to show your faith. Amen. Now take a good look at the first phenomenon, because what started coming up from the ground in Texas might make you rethink everything. 1. Evil flame erupting from the ground, the first sign of destruction coming. A flame shot straight up from underground, right in the middle of a busy college campus in America. Students at Texas Tech University in Lubbock were completely panicked. Power went out everywhere. Screams filled the air across the engineering key area. In that moment of chaos, you could almost feel the chill run down your spine, seeing fire breathing up from the earth. What made this so eerie wasn't just the fire itself, it was the way it showed up. The flames didn't spread or swallow trees and buildings nearby. They just stood there, bursting out of metal manholes, dancing like living pillars of fire. The color wasn't the usual orange-red. It was a strange yellow mixed with green, looking otherworldly, like a light that didn't belong here. A lot of people said in that moment they heard a weird moaning sound, as if it came right from the ground itself. Witnesses said there was at least one underground boom before the fire appeared. Just minutes later, about 40% of the campus went dark from the power loss. Students were rushed out of the area while those fire columns kept shooting up from below like bizarre fountains. No thick smoke, no spreading wildfire. Just these steady, flickering flames standing there, like some puzzling sign trying to get people's attention. In the Bible, pictures of fire coming from the earth and sky were talked about long before modern science even existed. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens, and on the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke." Reading those words again, a lot of folks started wondering if the strange things the world is seeing are just coincidences or signs that were foretold thousands of years ago. Experts quickly gave explanations, maybe a gas leak underground or an electrical short in buried lines causing metal to burn and create that green-yellow color. Lubbock Fire Rescue thought copper and electronic materials could be the cause, but even those answers leave big questions. Why did the fire pop up at so many manholes at once? Why didn't it spread like a normal fire? And why did everything happen so suddenly? Another Bible passage made people think hard after this event. Revelation 8-7 says, "The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up." For many believers, these aren't just symbols. They feel like small pieces of a much bigger picture, slowly coming into view over time. Of course, science can explain how the fire worked, but science rarely answers the deeper question. Why do these strange events seem to be happening more and more in the same period of history? As odd signs keep showing up one after another around the world, many believe the timeline for the final events has started moving. Some Bible researchers say unusual signs in nature often come with a central figure in prophecy, the Antichrist. In that view, these strange natural events aren't the immediate end of the world, but signals that a new phase has begun, one where major events in human history will start to unfold. Another verse people often bring up when talking about that time is 2 Peter 3:10. "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar, the elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything done in it will be laid bare." Those words make many feel that the smaller signs we see first are like alarm bells ringing. So the fire bursting from the ground in Texas might just be a rare accident. But for people who watch the signs of the times, it feels like a strong reminder that the world is heading into a time of trouble like never before. And if this was only the first sign, then the next thing that happened at a big airport parking lot in America will be even harder to understand. Because this time, it wasn't fire from the ground. It was a mysterious glowing orb hanging in the air, moving like it was searching for something. 2. mysterious glowing orb moves like it has a mind of its own. A ball of light suddenly appeared and hovered over the huge parking lot at Denver International Airport in Colorado. In a place usually filled with just cars coming and going and regular light poles, this glowing orb popped up out of nowhere in the air. Its light stood out brightly against the dark parking area, making a scene that was both strange and hard to explain. The orb became clearer, about 8 to 10 inches across, roughly the size of a big grapefruit. It hung a few feet off the ground and moved slowly across the parking area like a floating ball of energy. The light on its surface kept changing, sometimes bright white, sometimes a softer yellowish orange. Every now and then, a thin wisp of smoke came out from around it, making the orb look like some kind of pulsing energy source. What made this even more noticeable is that the Denver airport area is already famous for all kinds of mysterious stories. There was no thunderstorm or strong electrical activity recorded at the time, yet the orb showed up anyway and drifted slowly through the air, sometimes dipping closer to the ground, sometimes drifting farther away, almost like it was searching for its own path. In the Bible, unusual signs in the sky are often mentioned as signals to get people's attention. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be strange signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And on the earth the nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." When people put this strange light next to those old words, many believe sky signs are still part of special times we're meant to notice. The orb kept moving through the parking lot in slow, curving paths. It didn't drop or explode, it just floated there like a stream of energy held in the air. The light pulsed steadily, sometimes fading for a few seconds, then flaring up bright again, giving the feeling of a constant, living energy. Some scientists think this could be ball lightning, a rare kind of plasma that can form in the atmosphere. These plasma balls sometimes appear after electrical reactions in the air and last only a short time before disappearing. But most reports of them usually happen during lightning or heavy storms. What caught people's attention was that this orb appeared with no weather like that at all. So, on forums and social media, lots of different opinions popped up. Some said it's just a rare natural physics thing. Others felt these unusual lights might mean something deeper. Another Bible passage often comes up when talking about changes in the sky. Matthew 24:29 says, "Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." Those words make many believers think sky signs can show up in all sorts of ways. The orb's light kept pulsing for a few minutes before it slowly faded and vanished from the parking lot. Nothing was left in the air except the video that caught that rare moment. But that short appearance raised a lot of questions about what the phenomenon really was. Another Bible verse people often mention with strange signs appearing right in front of us is Revelation 13:13. It performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. For many who believe in prophecy, unusual lights in the sky could be small signs in a much bigger picture. To this day, there's no final explanation for the glowing orb at Denver Airport. It might just be a rare, natural plasma event. But for many others, it could be a sign to pay closer attention to what's happening in the sky. And if that strange light already got people asking questions, the next thing was even harder to understand. Because this time, on a bright sunny day, snowflakes suddenly started falling from a completely clear blue sky. 3. Snow falling on one tree right in the middle of a sunny sky. The sky is completely clear and blue, with sunshine spreading over a quiet, empty field in the United States. No clouds, no sign of cold weather at all, but right in that scene, something strange starts happening that leaves people puzzled. Small, white snowflakes begin to fall, and they're only landing on one single tree. All around, it's dry, the ground still bright under the sun, but at the base of that tree, snow is quietly building up. This sight quickly catches everyone's attention because it's so hard to explain. The snow doesn't spread out across the area like in a normal snowfall. Instead, the light white flakes come down in a narrow column from above, almost like an invisible opening has appeared right over the tree's canopy. In just a few minutes, the snow around the base has gotten noticeably thicker, forming a bright white ring that stands out against the dry ground. The snowflakes drift down slowly and gently, like little feathers floating in the air. The sunlight reflecting off the snow makes the whole scene both bright and oddly beautiful, like a quiet painting in the middle of the day. If you were standing there watching it, you'd probably wonder, why would nature pick this one tiny spot to create something so unusual? In the Bible, unusual signs in nature are often mentioned as reminders that the world can change in ways people don't expect. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke." People often bring up these words when they see natural events that go beyond what's normal. What makes this even harder to understand is how the snow focuses completely on just one spot. There's no strong wind pushing it in any direction, and no snow clouds in the sky. Yet the flakes keep falling exactly onto that tree's branches, layer after thin layer, building up until a white ring forms around the trunk. Scientists sometimes explain unusual snow patterns around trees by saying dark bark absorbs heat and causes melting rings. But here, it's the complete opposite. The snow isn't melting away, it just keeps adding more. That unusual part has a lot of people asking if some rare atmospheric condition is happening on a very small scale. When the video of this scene spread online, reactions went in two different directions. Some folks said it's just a rare local weather event, maybe a small pocket of cold air moving through. Others see it differently. They believe unusual signs in nature can sometimes carry deeper warnings. Another Bible passage often comes up when talking about changes in the natural world. Matthew 24:7 says, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places." For many believers, strange changes in nature make them think about these ancient warnings. The longer you watch, the thicker the snow gets around the tree's base, creating a clear white patch against the dark ground. The sky above stays bright and clear, sunshine pouring down, while the snowflakes keep falling in that same exact spot, like a small door has opened in the sky, right there. Another verse in the Bible talks about signs in the sky and on earth that make people pay attention. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." When people put this strange snow next to those warnings, many feel that nature sometimes sends signals we don't fully understand yet. So far, no one has a solid explanation for snow falling only on one tree. It could just be a rare coincidence in the atmosphere, but it might also be one of those small signs that make us pay closer attention to what's happening in the natural world. And if snow falling in the sunshine got people asking questions, the next thing that happened was even stranger. This time, a ring of many-colored light appeared in the sky, but its shape was completely different from a regular rainbow. 4. The mysterious rainbow bridge that stretches across the night. A huge arc of light suddenly appeared in the night sky over California. It stretched out like a glowing bridge right across the dark sky. It wasn't after a rain, and it wasn't in sunlight. Just in the middle of the night, a strange rainbow quietly showed up. If you were standing under that sky, you'd wonder, is this just some light effect, or maybe a sign pointing to something deeper? It happened on a clear night with almost no clouds over California. In that dark space, a long band of light appeared, running straight across the sky like a giant glowing arch. It was hundreds of feet long, giving off soft white light with a touch of pale green, sparkling like little crystals in the dark. What made it so unusual was its shape. Instead of curving gently like a normal rainbow, this one stretched out almost straight, like a bridge of light hanging in the sky. Thin layers of light stacked together, forming a clear, bright band against the black background. The whole scene looked magical and hard to explain. In the Bible, a rainbow isn't just a natural thing. It carries deeper meaning. Revelation 4:3 says, "And he who sat there was like a jasper and a carnelian stone in appearance, and there was a rainbow around the throne, in appearance like an emerald." That picture of the rainbow around the throne makes many people believe colorful lights in the sky can symbolize God's presence and power. The glowing arch stayed up in the night sky for several minutes. Its light gently pulsed, sometimes brighter, sometimes softer, like a stream of energy floating through the air. No rain fell, no sun was out to make a regular rainbow, but the band of light was still clearly visible in the darkness. Some researchers think it might be a rare optical effect in the atmosphere, like a circumhorizontal arc, sometimes called a fire rainbow. But those usually show up in daylight, when sunlight bends through ice crystals in high clouds. Seeing something like this at night feels very unusual to a lot of folks. When pictures of the glowing arch spread online, different opinions popped up. Some said it was just city lights reflecting in the atmosphere. But people with faith saw deeper meaning in it, because rainbows in the Bible are always connected to special messages. Another passage often comes up when talking about signs in the sky before big moments. Joel 2:30-31 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes." Those words make many believe the sky sometimes shows signs with real meaning. The glowing arch slowly faded as the night went on, but its image stayed with people. A bridge of light appeared in the darkness, stretching across the sky like an invisible path. To some, it was just a rare light effect. To others, it felt like a reminder of God's covenant and His presence. Another Bible verse talks about a sign in the sky. Matthew 24:30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Reading those words again, many feel strange lights in the sky can make people think more about their faith. Maybe that glowing arch was just a rare natural event, but it could also be a picture reminding us of promises and power written long ago in the Bible. And if that bridge of light made people look up at the sky, the next thing was even harder to explain. Because this time, right in the middle of freezing snow, a flame suddenly appeared and burned bright on the white ground. 5. Fire burning up from under the white snow. One step on the white snow and suddenly flames shoot up from the ground. In what looks like a quiet, frozen world, bright orange-yellow sparks burst out from under the thick snow, like something hidden deep down was just waiting. If you saw this right in front of you, you'd probably wonder, is this just a natural thing or some kind of warning sign? This happened in a snowy area in the United States, where thick ice and snow build up all winter long. The ground is covered with many inches of snow. Everything looks pure white and still. But right under that frozen layer, another kind of energy seems to be waiting to come out. When a foot presses down on the snow, small flames suddenly shoot up about 1 to 2 feet high. Those golden-orange flames flash bright against the white snow, making a picture that's strange and hard to explain. The snow around it doesn't melt all the way. The fire just appears for a second and then disappears, like a quick reaction from underground. The scene is a strong contrast. Fire and ice, right there together. Each step seems to set off a hidden spark, turning the cold snow into a place where flames suddenly appear. It reminds a lot of people of powerful images from old writings. In the Bible, fire is often a big sign of judgment and change. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke." Seeing flames pop up from cold ground makes some folks think of those ancient warnings. Scientists explain it pretty simply. In cold, frozen areas, methane gas can get trapped under the frozen soil. When the snow gets stepped on or pressed down, the gas escapes. In rare cases, a little friction or spark can make that gas catch fire for a moment. Still, watching flames burst up from under the snow leaves a strong feeling for anyone who sees it. The fire comes fast, burns bright against the cold white, then goes out, leaving the snow almost untouched. That sharp difference between ice and fire makes people think of deeper meanings. Another Bible passage talks about fire as a sign of big changes. Revelation 8-7 says, "Fire mixed with blood came down to the earth, and a third of the earth was burned up." Strong words like that get people thinking about what fire means in those old prophecies. This fire under snow thing also makes folks wonder about how the natural world is changing. When opposites like ice and fire show up together, it feels like a powerful picture of the hidden strength in the earth. Underground energy sometimes just needs a small push to break out. The Bible has another warning about fire and world changes. 2 Peter 3:10 says, "The day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar. The elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything done in it will be laid bare." Reading that again, many believe these natural fires might remind us of God's judgment power. Maybe these flames under the snow are just trapped methane gas in frozen ground letting go. But the image of fire rising from cold earth still gets people thinking harder about what's going on beneath the surface. And if flames under the snow make us look down at what's hidden in the ground, the next thing makes many look up to the sky. Because high above, strange clouds are forming shaped like giant eyes watching the world below. 6. A strange cloud hovering over the mountain like it's watching. A strange cloud just hung there in the sky above the high mountains. It didn't break up, didn't drift with the wind, just floated like a ball of vapor, slowly swirling inside itself. In the middle of the grand view of mountains and wide open sky, that cloud looked like something out of the ordinary. If you saw it from far away, you'd probably think it was just a regular cloud or maybe a sign that makes people look up at the sky a little longer. The scene was caught on camera by a hiker moving along a high ridge in the United States. Right above the mountain peak, a round cloud was hovering hundreds of feet off the ground. Unlike the other clouds drifting slowly with the breeze, this one stayed almost perfectly still in one spot, giving the feeling it was hanging there in midair. Inside the cloud, layers of mist swirled gently in a slow circle. Sunlight, bouncing through the vapor, made the surface sparkle, sometimes looking like thin streaks of color mixing together. The swirls inside kept changing, so the whole cloud seemed like something alive and moving from within. One thing that caught a lot of eyes was how the cloud didn't fade away over time like most little mountain clouds do. It held its shape pretty clearly for several minutes, like a pocket of vapor locked in place in the air. Those gentle inner swirls made the whole thing feel both magical and hard to explain. In the Bible, clouds often carry special meaning, tied to the presence of heavenly power. Luke 21:27 says, "Then people will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." Those words lead many believers to think that cloud pictures in the sky can sometimes mean more than just weather. The hovering cloud over the mountain also reminded some researchers of rare air patterns. In some cases, it could be a stable vortex or a special cloud type that forms when wind hits high mountain terrain. Still, clouds that keep a clear shape for a long time always spark curiosity in anyone who sees them. Online, folks came up with all kinds of ideas. Some thought it might be from man-made weather stuff like cloud seeding. Others mentioned von Karman vortex streets, those swirling patterns that form when wind gets split by the landscape. Even so, the sight of that cloud hanging steady high over the mountains made plenty of people stop and think. Another Bible verse that comes up a lot when talking about clouds in the sky is Revelation 1:7. Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him. For many, with faith, that line makes them pay closer attention whenever an unusual cloud shows up overhead. As the sunlight shifted, the cloud kept reflecting soft glowing streaks inside, almost like a living ball of mist. The gentle swirls kept going, while the whole cloud stayed right where it started, over the mountainside. Another passage in the Bible talks about signs that will appear in the sky before big moments. Matthew 24-30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Those words make many believers feel that Bible clouds always point to something deep about heavenly power showing up. Maybe that strange cloud was just a rare bit of atmosphere shaped by wind and the mountain layout. But for a lot of people, a cloud standing still high over the mountains still brings thoughts of bigger things we humans haven't fully figured out yet. And if that odd mountain cloud got people looking up at the sky, the next thing made a whole area listen in quiet. Because down in Florida, a strange sound came from the night sky, so loud that plenty of folks couldn't sleep all night. 7. A terrifying rumbling echoes across Florida. A loud, strange rumble suddenly broke the quiet of the Florida night sky. From the town of Pace to nearby parts of Santa Rosa County, a long, deep humming sound filled the air, like the ground itself was sending out some weird signal. In that moment, you could really feel how unusual this noise was as it spread over the whole area. It started in the evening, when folks were just settling into a normal weekend night at home. From off in the distance, a deep, drawn-out roar slowly moved through the neighborhoods, kind of like steam hissing out of a huge machine. It didn't blast and then stop. It kept going steadily, creating a low vibration that made a lot of houses shake just a little. The places that heard it clearest were Pace and spots nearby like Pea Ridge and Milton. The sound carried for miles, rolling down roads and through neighborhoods like an invisible wave. A bunch of people said it felt like a giant engine running deep underground or some kind of pressure bursting out from way down inside the earth. Pretty soon, local emergency lines got flooded with calls. In no time, more than 50 people rang 911 to report the odd noise. What stood out was that it wasn't coming in bursts. It just kept droning on and on, making the whole atmosphere feel heavy and tense. In the Bible, big sounds from the earth or sky often get mentioned as signs of major events. Revelation 8-5 says, "The angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it down to the earth, and there were peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake." A lot of believers feel those kinds of unusual natural noises can sometimes serve as warnings. The rumble in Santa Rosa County went on for several minutes, giving the sense that some kind of energy was vibrating right under the ground. There was no storm, no earthquake, or any other clear natural cause at the time. That missing usual explanation made the sound even more puzzling. Some folks who heard it called it a long, drawn-out sigh from the earth. It wasn't like short thunderclaps or big explosions. It was deep and steady, spreading out like an unseen sound wave. Right then, the Florida night sky felt calm, but loaded with mystery. The Bible also talks about loud noises coming before big changes. Matthew 24-6 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars." People often point to lines like that as warnings that the world will see signs we need to pay attention to. Afterward, local officials gave the official explanation. They said the noise likely came from the Santa Rosa Energy Center on Sterling Way, where a turbine had to shut down suddenly and the steam relief system kicked in to release pressure. According to the technical report, that process can make a loud sound that travels miles. Still, for a lot of people, that rumble left a strong impression. A long, deep noise spreading across the whole area got hundreds of folks paying attention all at once. Sounds like that tend to make people stop and think more about what's going on in the natural world. Another Bible verse mentions a rumbling sound as a sign of huge change. 2 Peter 3:10 says, "The day of the Lord will come like a thief. Then the heavens will pass away with a loud noise." When folks read that again, many believe odd natural sounds can remind us to take those ancient warnings more seriously. Maybe the rumble in Florida was just an industrial system letting off steam, but when a sound like that rolls over a whole region, it still makes plenty of people pause, listen to the sky and the ground around them.